All I want to do is have some fun. So hedonism, right?
Yep.
Welcome to the College of Valor, where we empower truth seekers with the art of reason. Hope is the motivation, truth is the goal. Everyday valor is the practice, better living is the result. Hi, friends. Thank you for listening to College of Valor today. This is episode 2, which I am calling Foundations of Truth. And it has a lot to do with how to build foundations, to build a truth schemata on that can help us all to live better lives every day. We start by diving straight into some of the challenges with postmodernism and something that I like to call pragmatic truth. And so this episode is a continuation of the previous episode, episode 1. So you might want to go back and listen to that one first if you have not, because there's a little bit of context there. But thanks for listening, and here we go. And that's one of the reasons why I believe that postmodernism has missed the boat. And I know there are a lot of people that would love to debate me on that one. But I have something close to postmodernism that I think applies. And in my mind, it makes sense. And that's pragmatic truth.
Oh.
So you used the term pragmatic a little bit ago.
Yeah.
I think we should define that term. What is pragmatism?
Pragmatic is, in a way, it's thinking practically and logically and taking emotion out of the equation.
You know, here's an example that I was kind of surprised at. I love the idea of pragmaticism, right? I love that idea. But then I found out that that's actually one of the philosophies around constitutional interpretation, like by the Supreme Court. Pragmaticism says that the Constitution changes in its meaning depending upon the needs and circumstances of the society at that time. I so strongly disagree with that. So when I use the word pragmatic, I don't mean that. And here's why I disagree with it. And this is a bunny trail, but the US Constitution framed clearly a methodology for changing the Constitution if the meaning needed to change, right? We can amend the Constitution. We can take away things, we can add things, and we have a process for doing so, which worked really hard to make sure that the people agreed that this was the way it should be. So we don't need to reinterpret the document. If we disagree with it, we need to change it.
Right.
So when I'm talking about constitutional law, I'm not a pragmaticist. But when I'm talking about truth, I'm afraid I am a bit of a pragmatist. And what I mean by that is, you said that truth was logical, that truth was, did you say reasonable? What was the other word you used?
I think I said that it was practical.
Practical is
and
my
emotionless.
You know, I may not, I have to think about the emotionless bit. I may not agree with that 100% because emotion is a part of how we evaluate the world around us, and that matters too.
I was defining pragmatic, not truth.
Well, when I talk about pragmatism and when it comes to pragmatic truth, what I mean is this truth working in your life for benefit, for good things to happen for you and for others, those around you that you interact with? So if you hold something to be true and it's really, really working, then there's a pragmatic, right? A practical application of that belief. And it doesn't mean that it's ultimately true. But sometimes when we don't know what really is true about some of the bigger questions of life, we sometimes just need to ask the question, well, what's pragmatic? What works? And maybe that leads us in a good direction in our journey toward truth.
Yeah, so, I think that's a really good point, because pragmatic as the way that I defined it, it's interesting because it is emotionless by nature. but you can be pragmatic about letting emotion into a situation, I think.
Yeah, you can.
So it's kind of a catch-22.
Sure. Well, here's one more example about pragmatic. For all of you physicists out there, we have two branches of physics, big umbrellas of physics, right? Newtonian physics by Sir Isaac Newton, and relativity, or Einsteinian, some people would say, physics. And those two physics coexist and disagree with each other. And what's funny about it is that almost everything that we do on Earth, Newtonian physics is not only good enough, it's the gold standard for making machinery that works, for cars, for airplanes that fly, for being able to have a YouTube video and talk to each other. You know, Newtonian physics is perfectly adequate, and not only adequate, but the way that we should use it is pragmatic to use it because it's straightforward, fairly simple, gives us accurate, predictable results that we can use until you launch a rocket and start trying to do orbital dynamics.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. It's like, well, what's the matter? Well, relativity is what's the matter. You find out that time and mass and energy are all related to each other and not necessarily constants. That's where E = mc squared came from.
Panic.
So whenever we start doing things at very high speeds, relativistic speeds, or with very massive objects, we have to start thinking in terms of how Einstein presented the physics.
Right.
Now, is it pragmatic to use relativistic type physics to predict how long it's going to take you to drive to the supermarket?
Probably not. I mean, you could if you really, really want to.
Well, that's where Newton comes in, and he wasn't obviously the first to figure out.
Right.
That,
you can just calculate friction on your car wheels, and then you can just
distance equals rate times time.
Right.
Okay, we're going to move on from physics. But the point is,
we're getting a little geeky in here.
Would you say that Newtonian physics are true?
Well, from a pragmatic standpoint, Newtonian physics are not an abstract realm of thought, right? They're applicable in our day-to-day life. So if you drive your car on a road, you'll know that all of the Newtonian physics will apply.
Sure.
So in that instance, I think that it is truth to an extent. But, we're learning and growing in the scientific community all the time. And we've gotten to the point where, we can't get any smaller with the physics that we know. We're at the smallest, most basic building blocks. But then if you think of doing physics from the top down, like infinitely large down to that minute thing, then there could be something that we don't know yet. So all that to say, I don't know that Newtonian physics is an ultimate truth.
So I think what you just described is how pragmatic truth works. Because some things are true with boundaries.
Right? Yes.
And that's what I would say about Newtonian physics. I mean, for instance, you're talking about a car, right? For every car on the planet, Newtonian physics is good enough, but there is one car right now where Newtonian physics don't help. That car, if you want to know where it is or how long it's been out where it is, Newtonian physics will tell you the wrong answer.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what car that is? That's Elon Musk's Roadster that he launched into space. It's going so far and so fast that time on that roadster is not the same as time right here on Earth. And we're down in this gravity well, and it's way out there away from the gravity well.
Right.
And so that roadster is experiencing different time, different gravity than what we would predict with Newtonian physics. So anyway, pragmaticism, or being a pragmatic truth believer, means that, if something is practical and applicable to your life, it doesn't mean it's the ultimate truth, but it might be worth something embracing in the right circumstances, because it will help to guide you to right answers. How about that?
Yeah.
Now, some
that.
people would say, well, isn't that kind of like postmodernism? Because what you just said was that truth is relative, it's personal, it depends on the circumstances, and that ultimate truth probably isn't well defined in those situations. Okay, I'll go that far. But I can't take the postmodern idea that two things that are in conflict with each other can simultaneously be true, because that's not pragmatic. It doesn't help. Right. So anyway, when we talk about truth, and truth is a big deal for the College of Valor, because we're truth seekers. It's not that we have truth, or that I have truth and I'm going to teach it to you. It's that we're pursuing truth together. It's a process, it's a journey. And one other thing I love to think about is that all living things grow. And even when I quit growing years ago, my body is still growing, because my cells are still reproducing and replacing old cells that need to be replaced. And that growth process continues. And when that stops, I'm dead. And in a very real way, each of us is either growing or dying. And if you're not growing, you're in the process of dying. So if your truth is not developing, what's going on here? I would like to talk a little bit about how we arrive at a belief system. We've kind of bounced around how important it is. We've kind of talked about what truth might be. But I want to talk about how a belief system can develop, or how we can begin to determine if what we believe is actually potentially a truth or not. And I like to use the word reasonable. Now, people get into a debate or a discussion, and sometimes they get emotional, and you'll hear someone say, just be reasonable, won't you? That's not what I'm talking about. When someone says that, they're trying to say to the other person that they are acting outside of reason, and they don't make any sense, and they're accusing the other person of insanity, essentially, not connecting the dots. That's not what I mean. When I say reasonable, I want to break it down to reason able to reason something out. So that's the first test of a belief. Can you reason it out? If it's not reason able, then you have to ask yourself the question, well, why do I believe that? If I can't reason this out and understand where that came from and why it matters, then where did that come from? Have I been deceived? It might be true or it might not, but if I can't explain it, I don't know. This is a huge issue in our modern day. So many people accept things as true for all the wrong reasons, and that's not reason able. They can't explain why they believe it to be true, why they value it. And if you can't do that, whoa, check yourself. It's time to do some hard work. That's where the valor steps in. And it's necessary, because you want to have a better life. You want a better world to live in. You want more joy, more happiness. You want to succeed.
And you won't be as defensive either. You won't have to defend your belief system with your emotions. You can defend your belief system from your reasoning, which puts so much weight off of you, and it'll help you to sleep at night.
Well, it's funny, because we started this show by talking about how important love is, and many people would say love's an emotion. I think it's far more than just an emotion, right? But love really, really matters. Love is a concrete thing as well as an emotion. But now we're talking about being reason able and logical. So we've kind of have Spock and Kirk battling against each other right here, right?
Yeah.
So not everything can be reasoned out, and you don't always have to be logical to make a quick decision. Sometimes intuition is amazingly powerful and correct. It can be, and I'm not discounting that, but I am saying when it comes to your value system, when you believe this or that or the other about the world around you, you really should be able to reason it out, not just feel it, but reason it out. And there's a word for that in philosophy. It's called epistemology.
Yes.
Epistemology. So epi, like epidermis. What's an epidermis biology? Skin. It's the upper layer, right? So
yes,
epi means above or upper, right? And then stem, epistemology. Stem means the source of. Right. And you think about the stem of a plant where the water and the nutrition goes up the plant through that. It's the source of the nutrition for the plant. It leads down to the roots that are firmly grounded in a foundation. Right? So that's what stem means. So epistem means above the stem, and ology is the study of. So epistemology means, how do you know what you know?
Right.
Where did that belief come from? You have something you believe that's up on top, the epi belief, and then you have a stem. It's an epistemological argument is what they would call it, right? You have a stem that says, this is why I believe this is true. And hopefully that plant is deeply rooted in a firm foundation that is nurturing, right?
Right.
And epistemology, I love the idea of the study of it. So why do you believe what you believe? How do you know what you know? Well, epistemology. And that's really what we want the College of Valor to be about. We want to help people to learn the skill to be able to evaluate why they believe what they believe. And if those beliefs aren't being pragmatic, not helpful, not good for themselves and others, then maybe through this critical thinking about epistemology, people will begin to say, well, I bet you I can reason this one out and come up with an alternative that would actually work better in my life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Just be truthful with yourself to realize that in the first place, that you're kind of cheating yourself if you're not studying your beliefs and why you think the way that you do. You're uprooting your foundation, which was the next thing I wanted to touch on before we finish for the day. So good segue. I do want to say something though, because this starts to sound really heavy. We're talking about responsibility. We're talking about taking on a job. We're talking about things that matter, right? It doesn't have to be horrible though. It is hard work, right?
But life should be fun. Fun also matters, and fun is a truth, and we're here to enjoy it, right? Yeah. So I don't want to get this so heavy that people are like, well, forget that. All I want to do is have some fun. So hedonism, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm not going to go as far as hedonism, but I will say truth matters too. So we don't want to make people think that this is going to be a Debbie Downer all the time. It's not what it's about. We're talking about a more joyful life. So
right. It's just doing a little bit of soul searching to find more happiness and more love, you know, a deep kind of happiness and joy and love in the long run.
Oh, you know what? That made me think of what you said the other day about healing the inner child.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, people, every person on earth, without exception, had to grow up.
Yeah.
Or is growing up. And that is a very tough process. And that inner child gets wounded and there's no way around it. Some people think, well, you grew up in such a great home. You guys never had to want for anything. Your parents were nice and loving. And, you know, how could you have, you know, call that family privilege if you want. Those people have a wounded inner child.
Right.
Even the ones that a lot of people would look at and say, well, you had it pretty good, dude. Those people have a wounded inner child. And other people that have gone through heinous experiences growing up, obviously they have a wounded inner child. I like to assert sometimes there's an advantage to that too.
Right.
Because learning how to manage those heartbreaking scenarios and come out the other side builds an inner strength that sometimes is unbelievable and extraordinarily pragmatic and useful. So when we talk about the inner child and healing the inner child, we're talking about we're all learning and growing, and life is tough, folks. It's not that someone has it easy and someone has it hard. We can't make things that delineated. It's more like we all have hard things and we all have easy things sometimes too.
Yeah.
Right? But let's talk about the storms of life, back to foundations.
Yeah.
And the wounding of the inner child and the healing of the inner child. A lot of the time when the inner child is not able to heal, it's because of disillusionment. It's because of belief systems that don't have an anchor.
Yeah.
People get knocked around because they don't really know what to think. They haven't built their value structure yet. And the place that all of that starts is with a foundation. And I'm going to say all the obvious things here, but if I were to build a tower on the dirt without a foundation, then we have expansive soils, go up and down and make the tower do this, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, right?
Yeah.
Or there could be rain and a flood that washes the dirt out from under the tower. It's just going to fall over. It doesn't work. So every builder knows you have to put a foundation that's deep below the permafrost. If you're in a place that freezes, it's got to be deep enough that it's on something solid that the water's not going to wash away. You have to be below those expansive soils so you can build on something that's not going to get knocked around and move. And once you do that, then that tower can stand up to amazing forces, wind and water and freezing and thawing and amazing hurricanes. We've all seen the picture of the lighthouse on the rock with the wave crashing against it. The wave's bigger than the lighthouse. And you're like, how's that even possible? How come it stands? It's because of the foundation.
Right.
Another way to think about this is, let's say you're trying to cross a river in a mountainscape, right? So you've got a fast moving current, roaring water, and you're trying to cross that. Well, if you have a good place to stand, then you can move through that current and make it just fine. And maybe you're on the shore of an ocean and a big wave comes, but if you have a really good place to stand, the wave doesn't knock you over. But if you're standing on slippery cobblestones that are covered with moss and slime and tumbling under your feet because they're not sitting on a firm foundation either, then it takes nothing to knock you down.
Right.
And once your legs are swept out from under you, then you're at the mercy of the waves. So many people are at the mercy of the waves.
Yeah.
They are lost at sea, getting battered by the storm, getting knocked around. They don't have a firm foundation, so they don't weather life's challenges. We want to burn. We want to build firm foundations. And that's what College of Valor is about, helping all of us build firmer foundations. And a firm foundation is a truth that can be deeply held and valuable. It gives you a place to stand. Like the country song, it was a saying before that, a colloquialism, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you got to determine what's worth standing for. You do that through epistemology. Right? But your foundations can even change, and they will change in your life. But when you come up with a foundation to stand on, something that you believe that you can defend, that is pragmatic and useful and helps you when the storms of life come and try to knock you around, when you have those firm foundations of belief, it doesn't mean that you're never going to change your mind about any of that, but it gives you something to build on.
Right.
It gives you a place to stand, and it makes you powerful. It makes you powerful. So that's what foundations are for. And that's what the College of Valor is for. And so what did we just talk about? We talked for a long time about a lot of stuff, maybe too long, but we talked about love.
Yeah.
How we want to couch our conversations in love and how important love is. We talked about why belief matters, right? It's very important because your belief changes the way you behave. It changes all those little decisions and the big ones too. And the outcome of your life is determined by what you believe. So belief matters. And then we talked about truth. And my assertion, we can debate it, but my assertion that there is one absolute pinnacle of truth and no one has it. But we're all moving toward it.
Yeah.
It's like seeking after the divine, right?
Right.
Seeking after the divine. And then we talked about pragmatic truth. Is it beneficial? Is it useful? Is it helpful? Is it good for you and others? If not, maybe it's time to question it. We talked about epistemology and being reason able in your truths. And then we talked about foundations and how doing the hard work of reasoning out your truths can build a firm foundation to stand on so you can weather the storms of life. And we could do episode after episode after episode on every single one of those topics. And something else that we look forward to, preview of coming attractions, is we're going to talk a lot about current societal trends in light of this idea about being a truth seeker. We're going to talk about how trends are knocking people around. They're creating the storms of life and undermining people's foundations sometimes.
Right.
Some societal trends are really, really good. I'm not like some old fogey who just believes in old-fashioned things, right? I'm actually, well, I've been accused by people of being a little bit Pollyanna. I believe in utopias, that we should have goals for perfect things and pursue them. I believe that people are good by nature. Not everyone always acts good, and some people have some really big challenges, but people are good by nature. That love does conquer all. And so there you go. We're going to explore all these things in the months and years to come.
And I'm so pumped about it. It's going to be awesome.
We're going to have a lot of fun. So, hey, I hope that what you heard today created, if nothing else, some question marks. You know?
Yeah.
I hope that it's like, oh, wow, maybe this is worthwhile to spend some time on this. And it's kind of funny, Lydia, because I don't want this to be a self-help program.
Right.
Just because I don't want to be stereotyped that way. But I think it is about self-improvement. It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Learning is about self-improvement, right?
Living a better life. But I just don't want to be stereotyped that way, because we're going to do so many things. There's going to be so much variety. We're going to have guests that come in and speak with us and share their ideas. We're going to explore a multitude of things. I'm so excited to do this with you. And that my priority is to try to provide a way for people to be able to build a firm foundation in a better life. Ultimately, that's what this is about. So,
man, yeah, we just really hope to bless all of the listeners with just some pragmatic advice and help.
Yeah, ideas to consider. Yep. Take the stuff that works for you and throw the rest away, or maybe tuck it away so you can access it later in life if you want to explore it at a later time.
Yeah.
But that's what this is about. So thank you, everyone, for watching and listening today. And, we love you.
Yep.
We love you. And we'll see you
Love
next
you
time.
guys.